Welcome back, everyone, to the WorthPlace Collective Podcast. My name is Kevin Peridot. I am going to be your host today in this space and place. I'm glad you're joining us. Today, here's what's going on. We're going to talk about some of my favorite books. And these aren't favorite books that I just like to sit around and read for the sake of reading and just because I enjoy them. But these are books that I find myself suggesting to the people that I work with most often. And those would be fellow coaches, C-suite leaders, clergy, and then just other colleagues and collaborators, people that just I run into and we're talking and we have similar backgrounds, interests, and things like that. And I suggest these books. And life update type of thing. I've probably said this before, but I teach for a group called Symbiosis. They teach and train coaches, certify coaches. They're accredited by the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. And I teach anywhere from 3 to 4 online classes each week. And this list and this idea came from there. People keep on asking me, what books do you suggest that frame up kind of what we do, how we do it? And interestingly enough, on this list, there's only one book that is even loosely directly related to coaching. But these are the books that I think have something, a story to tell. And I think it's worth telling the story of the stories they tell and point you to some books. Because at the end of the day, WorthPlace Collective, this podcast needs to be a space and place that is helpful to you. So the people that are leading other people, coaching other people, pastoring other people, working and collaborating with other people, we don't know everything we need to know to lead the way that we need to lead, right? And so this right here gives us the ability to learn and to grow and to lean in. So that's what we're going to do today. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 books. We're probably going to cover about half of those today. I don't want to make this too long, and but I do want to get into to some of these books. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, maybe tell you some stories, and tell you maybe why it's important, and then we'll move on to the next. I will make sure that whatever books I mention here, I will give you the author, when it was published, who the publisher, and a short description of each of them in the notes on this podcast so you can access that. All right, my friends, let's jump in. So the first book that I find myself, and especially here lately because it got to the top of the list because I've been talking about it a lot lately, is a book by David Marquette called Turn This Ship Around. Turn This Ship Around. So Marquette was a submarine commander. And he found himself in a place, I'm not giving anything away, this is first chapter type of stuff here, my friends, that he got moved to another submarine. And when he got moved to a submarine, he had to get deployed very, very quickly. He did not have time to get up to speed on the submarine like he normally would. It was a different class of submarine. And during this time, during this age, in the Navy, as the main person that was commanding and watching over the entire ship, you were responsible for knowing the ship inside and out, like everything about the ship. And he didn't have time to get up to speed. So what did he do? He did something radical. He trusted the people on the ship to know how to do their jobs. And he shifted the leadership culture from kind of a straight, I am the one in charge and I tell everybody what to do in every place on the ship and I know and make every call, to being the person who ask people question, what do you think we should do? He went to the point where eventually on the ship, it became everybody on the ship would come to him, or anybody that was an authority over them. They would not come and say, "What do you want me to do?" or "I await your commands." But they were instructed to come with a solution to the problem. "I intend to," and they would insert what they intend to do. And then the person would either agree or disagree with it, and they would move on. This book is an excellent book on how culture can change. Because of the places that have kind of rigid ways in which they do things, military is typically, stereotypically, the place that's not going to change quickly. But he changed the culture of the ship in a very short amount of time. And eventually it took over the entire submarine squadron. I'm not sure what you call a group of submarines. I'm sure somebody that listened to this will tell me that what it actually is. But the whole group, and eventually he got promoted up the chain, and this became part of the culture of how the submarine community worked. All right. So who is this for? Any leaders who are in places where cultural change needs to happen. This is a great read. The reason it's a great read, it's short, it's easy to read, full of illustrations, full of stories. It's easy to wrap your mind around the concepts of leadership, how you implement it, how you change things from a command and control model to a much more I trust the people that I lead. So one of his big catchphrases in the book is that you need to transition from a leader-follower model to a leader-leader model. So everyone is a leader of someone, of something that they do. And we go beyond even empowering them. We don't just empower them, go and make this decision because it's the decision I want you to do. But how do I help them develop as a leader so they can make the best decisions possible in the areas that they're responsible for? That's just a teaser. There's a lot more to the book, but I highly suggest it. Turn the Ship Around, David Marquette. The second one on the list is How to Fight a Hydra. This is by a gentleman named Josh Porter. And Josh is going to tell you later on in the book, in the postscript, that he set out to write a book about time management and productivity. And what he ended up writing was instead one of the cleanest, most concise summations of the hero's journey. So the tale begins with a young man who is stuck in a job that he doesn't like to be in. He doesn't know what he's doing, and days are just blending together. And he decides to go on a venture. And in the adventure, he's going to slay a hydra. And then it walks through the whole process of him finding the hydra, going into the cave, doing battle with the hydra, what happens afterwards, when he comes back and he's celebrated as a hero, how he finds congruence in his life, and how does he fight other hydras after that. And the book it's so short. That's what I can't emphasize enough here. This book is such an easy read, an enjoyable read, but the metaphor is extremely rich. The reason I think this is so profound and so spot on and can be used across so many platforms by people is that the hero's journey, just no matter where I do coaching, this movement from being in the place that you are and being complacent. And then you move into a stage and a season of conflict. And there's a threshold between moving out of complacency into a stage of conflict, entering your cave. And then there's another threshold, which is when you return back to your world, which is congruence. All right. This is like around WorthPlace. This is the framework, the theory of change. And this book defines that theory of change. All right. It's a great read. I highly, highly suggest it. Where can this be used? I use this with any leader when I find that they're in the midst of a transition. Somehow, some way, a metaphor and a story unlocks parts of our heads and hearts and soul and our experience as a human being that concepts and theories simply cannot. And so this is a great read to suggest as a secondary resource, and then we'll use it to reflect on as we move through either a coaching or a consulting. I think it's a great book to be used with leaders who manage other people, just to kind of set a tone that when I'm working with you, and even though you're working for me, quote unquote, I'm your manager, I see that you're a person, and we are all on a journey. All right, it's a great read. Of all these books, if you're only going to read one, I think this one covers so much territory. So I'm not saying this above all, but it is well worth the read. This next one I've actually got on my shelf right here. That looked really cool, by the way. You see that? Just pull around and got to the shelf. This book right here, Who Do We Choose to Be by Margaret Wheatley. All right. If you have not experienced Margaret Wheatley, before maybe even picking up the book, that's what she looks like right there. You might want to go and check out some YouTube videos. There is some wonderful videos out there, 20, 30, 40 minutes long. There's a lot of them out there. There's a bunch of interviews she's done. If you just hear her talk, you'll understand why this book is extremely important. Wheatley has multiple she just brings so much expertise to the table. This book, it was published in 2017. So she was writing this book in the midst of one of the largest transitions that in my lifetime that we had, which was the 2016 the new administration that took over in 2016. And she had been talking about the stage that was being set decades before. But this book, as she was writing it and watching things play out, like she hit some nails on the head. This is the basic concept. She says every civilization, and she's building upon other people's works here, eventually, about 250 years in, goes through a collapse. P.S. United States of America was celebrating their 250th anniversary this year. Like, we're right in this. But the biggest thing here is not the magic number of 250. Like, we're not like, we're reading the signs of the universe here. But the bigger thing that's going on here is that the ways in which society is structured, and she leads you through the different things. And the last stage is what she calls, she's reinterpreted as kind of the celebrity stage. It's where truth principles don't reign as much, but it is celebrity, it's entertainment, it's consumerism, it's what's in it for me, and you heard the generational arguments before about how, hard times make hard men and soft times make soft, that. Anyway, she talks through some of that. But here's the thing. Here's the crazy part about Margaret Wheatley, and in this book in particular. There's not a hopeful end at the end of this book. She doesn't say it's all going to get better if we just do X, Y, and Z. But listen to the title. Who do we choose to be? Subtitle, Facing Reality, Claiming Leadership, Restoring Sanity. Some of the biggest takeaways is she says, everything is going crazy. It is my words here, it's a dumpster fire. And society is going to do what society does. All right? But who do you choose to be in the midst of it? And she says leaders that want to lead well and are going to be what she calls warriors for the human soul, for the human spirit, are going to be people that form islands of sanity. That where they are and how they lead and how they interact with the people around them, in the landscapes of the dumpster fire, there's going to be these islands of sanity which you can gravitate and be a part of. Okay? And she said, we are the people that choose to create those islands of sanity. This book, by the way, when we were forming WorthPlace Collective, was a large part of the kind of the talk, and like, how do we form a place where people feel sane, where they feel heard, where the chaos is not the largest noise, but something deeper is going on, i.e. worth is being lifted up. So I highly suggest this book. There is so much gold in it. She also has whole chapters where she talks about moving away from a command and control model of leadership into a much more organic. I am losing the word here. The ecosystem will start to build itself. So there's a growth thing that happens when you that people, when you put them in a room, if it's not command and control, they learn how to do things together in a very organic, self-sustaining way. And this PS is the same thing when I was talking about turn the ship around, moving from command and control to that the system learns how to do things the most effective way. And anyway, she covers a lot of ground in this book. There is some and plus this book is it's beautiful in this regard. She wrote it intentionally. She explains this where there's a lot of space in the writing, and there's a lot of like these just beautiful landscape pictures. It's a different book. Like the words are weighty, they're heavy. This is when people are caught in the dumpster fire and they're ready. This is always the book that I suggest. I think she does something deeply profound in this book. So that's Margaret Wheatley, Who Do We Choose to Be? And she has 2 or 3 other great books out there as well. Everything I've read by her, seen by her, highly, highly suggest. Okay? All right. All right. So, the next one, and again, this is heavily leaning into the coaching world, because a lot of the people that I'm working with in that world are all about establishing new businesses, new coaching businesses. So one that has been on my lips a lot lately has been E-Myth, the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Okay. Another really easy book to read. There's a theme here. By the way, all the books I've suggested for are easy reads. This one is not. This hurts a little bit, by the way. Like, it's a slow read. You can't take in too much. All the others are really, that I've suggested so far, really easy reads. E-Myth Revisited, easy read. It's a story. It kind of tells one of these living allegories, and it tells about a person who loved to bake, and they were great at baking pies and all other baked goods. And so somebody said, you should start a bakery. and you should start a brick and mortar. And they said, that's a great idea. And then they became a baker, they became a administrator, and they became a marketer. All right. They had to market their business. This book talks about how you hold those three things that everybody that becomes an entrepreneur has to hold together. And that, how do I say this? Being a great baker is not enough to start a business. That you've got to either learn how to do all three at the same time, or quickly delegate the others to other capable people around you or people that you hire. But the scalability for most people as they're starting things doesn't work that quickly. All right. So this is a great read for anybody that's starting a new business and a new venture. This is a great book to read. It challenges like how you perceive yourself. And I cannot escape this as I have been starting, Shepherd's Forge and A Forged Life, and trying to go, how do all these things fit together? And how do I take care of my books and maintain the finances? How do I market myself? And then how do I just make knives and coach? Because that's what I love to do. But I got to find a way to do all those things. This book, if you're in the juggling business and find yourself there, this is a great read for you. All right. So that's the first four. Let me hit a few more here. All right. Let's go to The War of Art. It's sitting over there. I'm not going to go up and get it. But The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. I think this is, not quite the oldest, but this is one of the older books in my suggestions here. Pressfield. I knew Pressfield before I knew that I knew Pressfield. Pressfield wrote one of my favorite movies, the script for it, The Legend of Bagger Vance. A great old classic with both a young Matt Damon and Will Smith as his caddy. It tells a story of Bagger Vance. Great stuff. Pressfield wrote a lot of scripts, a lot of movie scripts, and did a lot of work in that area. And then it's like he did some transition work, and he just started writing about writing and writing about the process of creating. Okay. In The War of Art, he starts to lay out that anybody that sets out to make something, to write something, to create art, to create music, to create business, whatever it is that you are creating and bringing to the world, that it's a war, it's a battlefield. All right. And he brings in this, as soon as I say it, you're going to be like, oh, I know what that is. He personifies resistance. Okay. He does this beautiful job of talking about that resistance is this natural thing that any artist, anybody that makes, anybody that creates, anybody that does work that is worthwhile is going to encounter resistance. And the thing I love about this book is that every chapter, I don't think there's one that's more than 3 pages long, and most of them are a page to page and a half. And it's a small book, large print. Like he uses like these short little thoughts. And I've read this physically. I have listened to this 3, 4, 5, 6 times. It is just, and every time I listen to it, I hear something new, and it's bite-sized and it hits you at the right time. So this is a great book to keep in your backpack, in your car, on your iPhone, to listen to when you're walking, whatever it is. But this one, I suggest to a lot of people, because a lot of people that I work with, from coaches to C-suite leaders to clergy, to colleagues, to collaborators. They're all battling to make something. And this book names the battle that they fight every day, and it's with resistance. And it talks about what it feels like to fight, what it feels like to overcome, what it feels like to show up and grind and write and create even when you don't feel like it. Like, it's just, he's a great truth teller. So I cannot suggest this one enough. The War of Art. All right. All right. Got a couple more here. The Sacred Enneagram. All right. This is written by Christopher L. Hertz. And this one is probably the most spiritual of all the books on this list. In the traditional, it's spiritual. But the reason I put this on the list is over the past few years, I have found that the Enneagram has given me more insights into who I am, how I operate, how I lead, how I show up in rooms, how I respond to people. And this to me is the best primer book into the Enneagram. There's a lot of them out there. And I've sampled a lot of them. But this one, for me, for what it's worth, I like the way it's laid out. Some books, for what it's worth, kind of tell you it, because the Enneagram has 9 numbers. All right. 1 through 9. And 2, 3, and 4 are the heart center. 5, 6, 7 are the head center. And then 8, 9, and 1 are the gut center. All right. And this is about the Enneagram in general, but the Enneagram, every number, like I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, every number has a line of disintegration. So under stress, I move towards a 5. All right. And I get all up in my head and I overthink things. But there's a line of integration, and the line of integration for me as an 8 is a 2, which means I'm moving more to my heart, more toward my feeling, more toward the things that I'm in that feeling place, and I can connect with people at a deeper level. That in itself, kind of creating a spectrum of where I am, where I'm growing, where I'm moving, is wonderful. Now, a lot of books that are written about the Enneagram, they go through, how do I say this? They tell you about the 1s, they tell you about the 2s, they tell you about 3s, and they just do 10, 20 pages about each one, and then do some summary remarks at the end. What I appreciate about this book is it instead takes slices of concepts that the Enneagram highlights, like childhood trauma and what created us in childhood that's different for the Enneagrams, things that bring the different types peace, or, take these different slices. And this book lays it out that way, so it's much more holistic, and I saw much more. So this is a great read. I think for what it's worth, if leaders are going to do a deep dive with the people around them, a deep dive, not a shallow dive. I've got some tools for shallow dives, but deep dives, I think the Enneagram is one of the best ways to do it. The Enneagram is unique in this way. I used Myers-Briggs for a long time, and Myers-Briggs, after you use it a while, you can kind of understand when you're interacting with somebody. You go, oh, they're an extrovert. They are a extrovert. They're an intuitive person. They're a feeler, and they're a perceiver. You can kind of see who they are by the way in which they act and the way they move through the world. The Enneagram, I can't guess, I can't tell, because majority of what the Enneagram is picking up is internal motivations. So it's not until you take a test, and therefore you see things when you start understanding how somebody functions and how you function. You're seeing them at a deeper level within. So I think it exposes things at a deeper level. I once was working with this group, and they kept on telling me that there was conflict within the group. And I said something about the Enneagram. They're like, "Oh yeah, we took the Enneagram, just a couple months ago." I was like, "Well, let me see your results. Can you send the results?" They sent them to me as I was coaching them. And come to find out, the primary place where this group was getting stuck was that they had one person on their team that was in the head quadrant. Everybody else was primarily feelers, or they were sensors, gut type of people. And once they realized that some of the conflict was coming because this person was thinking first through their world, like they were like trying to logic things out and were very like non-emotional about things, but saw it from a very rational standpoint. There was this big aha of like, oh, that's how they function? Oh, that makes sense. And then there was just the pressure in the room relaxed. So understanding the Enneagram is wonderful for teams, for leaders across the board, any place, anywhere. And this book leans into it in a very, very helpful way. All right. And then let me hit one more, and I'll stay on that theme here. And let's go with a book called Surrounded by Idiots to wrap up today. This is by Thomas Erickson. All right. So what this book does is takes the classic DISC profile, D-I-S-K for what it's worth, not D-I-S-K, D-I-S-C, DISC profile, and it simplifies it down into, instead of these kind of descriptive words that you have to think through what they mean, it just makes people colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. All right. And the DISC profile, I didn't know this about the DISC profile. The DISC profile was originally created to help salesmen sell stuff to other people so that they could know, how another person worked. And it was primarily used in that regard. And then as they translated this down to red, yellow, green, and blue, it has just made this more accessible. I bumped into the DISC profile like almost 20 years ago was my first encounter with it. And I knew what I was, but I never referred to it a lot. It was helpful, but not extremely helpful. And I took the extended profile. Like some of these tests, you're taking a test that takes you 45 minutes to an hour. And it was one of those. Took it for a seminary class, and it was supposed to give me all this insight. But when I read this book a few years ago, it finally made sense. And the reason I love this book so much is, and again, it's just like the Enneagram, it exposes like there are different types of people. They work from different frameworks. No person is better or worse than another person just because they're a color. And this book does an awesome job also of talking about how colors blend. All right. That was one of the things about the original DISC profile. It's true here as well, is that you could have a primary number, a letter designation, and a secondary. And in this, you have colors that blend together. So you might be primarily yellow mixed with a little bit of blue. Okay. So to give you a quick summary, just so you can imagine some of this, a red is a bold, take charge, loud, lion type of person. A yellow is your charismatic, always having a good time, is looking for the party, always generating a new idea. The green is the risk-averse person. They need to know that something's completely safe before they do it. So it's very important for them to have understanding and that the risk be greatly reduced. The blue are people that need the facts. They need the Excel sheets. They need the facts. And once they have the facts, then they can move. Okay? So, for an example, If you're selling something to someone, the blue is going to need to have the hard data. The green is going to need to be the person who feels safe and all of the risk are as low as they possibly can be. The yellow is going to need to be taken out to lunch and drinks. And if they like you, that they're probably going to buy something from you. And the red is take charge. They're going to need to feel in control, and they're going to need to know that what they're doing is going to help them be in more control. Okay. Oh, I am making some grand generalizations here, but that's the vibe. And once you understand this book can be extremely helpful for coaches, for C-suite leaders as they're thinking about the people they lead and the people that make up their teams, and helping their teams understand, or the managers working underneath them understanding how people work. So it's just enlightening. And again, I think the Enneagram or Surrounded by Idiots, something like this, they are tools that help people understand other people. They're not tools that are meant to put people in categories and control and manipulate them, but they help us to see the other person's worth, right? That's what they do in their greatest, when they're working. There's a line from Surrounded by Idiots, and I cannot quote you the exact line. I could find it in my phone because I remember writing it down. But it said something like this: when you are working, when you're a red type of personality and you're working in an organization that's primarily green and blue, you're going to always be frustrated because you cannot reduce the risk enough to help the green to move. And sometimes you cannot supply the facts that's needed at the pace you need to keep things moving forward, because the green and blue, when they become the largest voice, they overwhelm the culture of a place. And I say this because one of the people on my list that this is for Clergy. And I had the realization that I was in a place that was mainly, as I thought through the people around me, were primarily green and blue people. There's nothing wrong with green and blue people, my friends. But when we're so risk adverse and we're not going to change, we're not going to move ahead because it's too risky, it causes tension, especially if you are a person, and I'm kind of a reddish, primarily reddish type of person, maybe with a little bit of yellow on my best of days. But I wanted to move forward. And as I looked around, there was a lot of blue and greens around me that they needed facts. They needed the risk so low that it was safe to move. And they dominated the culture. All right. Anyway, this book is an excellent read, and I think you'll appreciate it. And it has been confirmed, by the way, while I'm doing classes, the people that's read this book, they have widely enjoyed this. And so anyway, for what it's worth, I've heard other people rave about these books. This isn't just my personal list, but I've heard other people speak good things. And I think this is a good place for you to start in your journey if you're looking for some books and some readings for 2026. And this is a good place for me to stop for today. I've got another 8 books. I don't know if I got through 8, but I've got more books here that I will share on either the next podcast or a podcast coming up. But thank you for joining us today in the space and place. I do want to mention an opportunity coming up in May, 21st, 22nd of May. I'm hosting an on-site. When I say me, I'm talking about a Forged Life. We're hosting a knife-making class, 2-day class, immersive experience, and then it's going to be followed up by 8 sessions of group coaching. The purpose here is to have a leadership lab for guides, Leadership Lab for those who guide /AKA known as leadership. And the hope here is that, by making something, thinking about how something is made and for what purpose it is made and what it takes to make something, i.e. a knife, that the same principles will transfer to your life. So if you find yourself in transition, stuck, living with delayed hope, living with the symptoms of burnout, which are cynicism, futility, and exhaustion, this is a great place for you to create some space in your life to see how to make decisions and to forge a new path. All right, to write a new chapter in your story. So if you're interested in that, you can go to shepherdsforge.com. The experience is called Into the Forge, and you can check that out. So shepherdsforge.com and click on Into the Forge. I will also drop that into the notes for this podcast. So again, thank you for joining me today in this space and place. Have a great and wonderful week, and I will be back with you shortly. Have a good one, my friends. Keep forging forward.